Throughout history, humanity has been enchanted and sometimes obsessed with the idea of youth. Smooth skin, bright eyes, a strong body, and a spirit full of vitality were always symbols of strength, beauty, and even divine favor. Today, we might think of anti-aging creams, vitamin supplements, or modern surgery, but thousands of years ago, people had their own ingenious, strange, and sometimes bizarre ways of trying to preserve their youth. From bathing in donkey's milk to consuming powdered gemstones, from spiritual rituals to herbal elixirs, the pursuit of eternal youth reveals not only how creative, but also how deeply human our ancestors were. In this script, we'll travel through different civilizations: Egypt, Greece, Rome, China, India, the Middle East, and beyond, to uncover the strangest, most fascinating ways people tried to hold on to their youth. Each section will explore a different method, belief, or ritual, painting a vivid picture of how far people would go to defy the passage of time. So settle in, and let's begin with the Egyptians, whose legendary beauty secrets still echo through time. Section 1. Cleopatra and the Donkey Milk Baths. When we imagine ancient Egypt, we often picture golden palaces, towering temples, and the Nile's eternal waters glistening under the desert sun. But behind the grandeur, there was also an everyday obsession with appearance, vitality, and the pursuit of youth. At the center of this fascination stands Cleopatra VII, the last queen of Egypt, whose beauty became so legendary that it inspired stories for more than 2,000 years. Among her many beauty secrets, none is more famous or more bizarre than her indulgence in donkey milk baths. The legend tells us that Cleopatra bathed in donkey's milk to preserve the youth and softness of her skin. But this wasn't just the occasional luxury. It was a full ritual that required enormous effort and resources. Ancient accounts suggest she kept entire herds of donkeys, sometimes said to be more than 700 animals, to supply enough milk for her daily bath. Imagine the logistics: attendants carefully milking hundreds of donkeys, storing the milk in large vessels, and ensuring it remained fresh under the hot Egyptian sun before it was finally poured into Cleopatra's personal bathing chamber. Why donkey milk? To ancient minds, milk symbolized purity, nourishment, and renewal. Donkey milk in particular was prized for being lighter and more delicate than cow's milk, making it a luxurious choice for the wealthy. Modern science has revealed something even more fascinating. Donkey milk contains a high concentration of lactic acid, an alpha-hydroxy acid still used today in skincare products. Lactic acid gently exfoliates the skin, removing dead cells and revealing a brighter, smoother surface beneath. In other words, Cleopatra's ritual may not have been just a myth. It had a real biochemical basis. But Cleopatra was not the only one who believed in this ritual. Roman noblewomen, always eager to imitate Egyptian luxury, adopted donkey milk baths themselves. The Roman historian Pliny the Elder wrote that donkey's milk effaces wrinkles in the face, renders the skin more delicate, and preserves its whiteness. Wealthy Roman women even carried small jars of donkey milk cream with them when they traveled, dabbing it onto their cheeks or mixing it with honey for masks. For Cleopatra, however, the baths were more than skincare. They were part of her persona. She cultivated an image of divine beauty, one that could enchant powerful men like Julius Caesar and Mark Antony. Her milk baths became a symbol of extravagance, of a queen who commanded nature itself to serve her youth and allure. To step into such a bath was not just to nourish the skin, but to reinforce the idea that she was more than mortal, perhaps a goddess in human form. The ritual itself would have been elaborate. Picture a chamber filled with polished stone, attendants pouring steaming vessels of milk into a large basin. Fragrant oils, perhaps rose or lotus, are added to mask the sourness of the milk and leave a lingering perfume on the queen's body. Cleopatra would lower herself into the bath, surrounded by her handmaidens, as the white liquid swirled around her. The experience was as much about indulgence as it was about beauty. The Queen of Egypt, floating in a bath of milk, shielded from the world's cares, immersed in a luxurious symbol of eternal youth. And the donkey milk was only part of her arsenal. Cleopatra was also said to have used honey masks to soften her skin, sea salt scrubs to polish her body, and even crushed pearls dissolved in vinegar as a kind of elixir. This last one may sound extravagant, but pearls were associated with immortality and perfection, and drinking them was thought to infuse the body with their eternal essence. Some sources suggest Cleopatra once dissolved a pearl in vinegar just to impress Mark Antony, consuming it before his eyes to demonstrate her wealth and divine-like indulgence. What's striking about Cleopatra's donkey milk baths is how they blend science, symbolism, and spectacle. On one hand, the lactic acid in the milk genuinely could have made her skin smoother. On the other, the ritual reinforced her status as someone whose beauty was unmatched, a ruler who could command nature's bounty for her own preservation. And beyond that, the baths became a story, a myth passed down through centuries that cemented Cleopatra's place as the eternal beauty of antiquity. Even today, the idea lives on. Donkey milk is still used in certain soaps, lotions, and skincare products, often marketed as Cleopatra's secret. Beauty spas around the world offer treatments inspired by her legendary baths. It's a reminder that the quest for youth is timeless and that the rituals of the past continue to inspire us, even if we no longer keep 700 donkeys on standby. Ultimately, Cleopatra's donkey milk baths are more than a curiosity of history. They reveal how deeply the ancients intertwined luxury, beauty, and power. To preserve one's youth was not only a personal desire, it was a political tool, a way to embody strength, divinity, and timelessness. Cleopatra's beauty wasn't just her own. It was Egypt's symbol, and through rituals like the donkey milk bath, she ensured that both her face and her legend would live forever. Section 2. Ancient Greek Gymnastics and Olive Oil Rituals for Eternal Youth. If Cleopatra's milk baths represented luxury and indulgence, the ancient Greeks pursued youth and vitality through movement, discipline, and the extraordinary use of a very simple substance: olive oil. To the Greeks, youth was not only about smooth skin or wrinkle-free faces, it was about vigor, strength, harmony of body and mind, and above all, the appearance of physical perfection. In their world, nothing symbolized eternal youth more clearly than the gleaming, muscular figure of an athlete, oiled and shining beneath the Mediterranean sun. The Greek admiration for youth ran deep into their philosophy, art, and daily life. In statues from the classical period, you can see idealized male and female forms, youthful, proportioned, graceful. These weren't just works of art, they were cultural statements. To be young and fit was to be close to the divine, and so a gymnasium became not just a training ground for the body, but a temple of youth, where olive oil was both the sacred ointment and the secret weapon. Every athlete, before competing or exercising, would coat their skin in olive oil. This ritual had many layers. First, there was the practical element. The oil protected the skin from the harsh Mediterranean sun, shielded it from dust, and kept it supple. Second, there was the aesthetic effect. A body glistening with oil looked radiant, muscles highlighted in the sheen, every contour emphasized. To the Greeks, the oiled body became a living statue, an image of perfection and vitality. But there was more. After exercise, athletes scraped the oil off their bodies with a tool called a strigil. This simple, curved bronze instrument allowed them to remove sweat, dust, and oil in one sweep, leaving the skin cleansed and renewed. Some Greeks even believed that the mixture of sweat and oil, called gloios, had magical, almost medicinal properties. In fact, it was collected and sold, sometimes kept in small jars, and used as a kind of tonic or cosmetic. Imagine that, people applying the sweat and oil of athletes in hopes of capturing some of their strength and youth. Olive oil was not only for athletes, however. It played a role in everyday beauty routines, especially for women. Greek women used it as a moisturizer, massaging it into their faces and bodies to prevent wrinkles and dryness. It was mixed with perfumes, herbs, and sometimes honey to create soothing balms. In a world without modern cosmetics, olive oil was the closest thing to a miracle elixir, natural, abundant, and versatile. Physicians like Hippocrates, often called the father of medicine, even recommended olive oil for treating skin conditions, wounds, and signs of aging. Greeks also tied the preservation of youth to physical culture itself. Gymnastics, wrestling, running, and dancing were not only sports, but rituals of vitality. To train the body was to keep it young, strong, and divine. Philosophers like Plato believed that the balance of the body and soul required constant care, and that neglecting physical fitness would lead to decay, both physical and spiritual. In this sense, youthfulness was seen as a discipline, not just a gift of nature. One of the most fascinating aspects of Greek culture was their reverence for the god Apollo, who embodied beauty, youth, and health. Apollo was often depicted as a shining, athletic figure, eternally youthful, eternally radiant. By oiling their bodies, Greeks may have felt that they were imitating the gods, drawing a little closer to that divine perfection. In this way, their rituals were not merely cosmetic, they were spiritual acts of aspiration. Interestingly, olive oil was also connected to rites of passage. Young men, before entering adulthood, trained in gymnasiums where the oiling and scraping of the body became symbolic acts of transformation. A glistening sheen of the skin was a metaphor for youth's bloom, while the scraping process symbolized renewal, removing the old, preparing for the new. Even in death, the connection continued. Bodies were anointed with olive oil before burial, as if to preserve their youth for eternity. And yet, like Cleopatra's milk baths, this obsession was not without extravagance. Some wealthy Greeks went to great lengths to acquire the best olive oil, perfumed with rare resins and flowers, just to massage it into their skin after exercise. In certain households, olive oil was more valuable than wine. Wars were even fought, in part, for control of olive groves, since the substance was seen not only as food and fuel, but as the essence of beauty and vitality itself. What's remarkable is how much of this has carried into modern life. Athletes today still oil their bodies for competitions like bodybuilding, where the gleam emphasizes muscles under stage lights. Massage oils, skincare products, and health regimens often feature olive oil as a star ingredient. When we drizzle it over food or rub it into dry skin, we're unconsciously echoing rituals that began more than 2,000 years ago in the marble-paved gymnasiums of Athens. The Greek pursuit of youth was, in many ways, the opposite of Cleopatra's, where she immersed herself in soft luxury. The Greeks celebrated discipline, sweat, and labor. Yet both shared the same dream: to resist time, to hold on to vitality, to remain radiant for as long as possible. And perhaps, deep down, that dream is as human as it gets. Section 3: Ancient Chinese Elixirs and the Dangerous Quest for Immortality. If the Greeks sought youth through discipline and the glow of olive oil, and Cleopatra sought it in baths of milk and honey, the ancient Chinese pursued something far more ambitious: not merely the preservation of youth, but the defeat of death itself. In their eyes, to remain young forever was not just a matter of beauty, it was a sacred mission, a spiritual challenge, and sometimes a fatal obsession. China's long history is filled with tales of emperors, alchemists, and philosophers searching for the secret to eternal life. This was not a quiet dream, hidden away in poetry or art. It was an active quest, a state-funded pursuit, with resources, wealth, and lives poured into the attempt to find the ultimate elixir of immortality. To the emperors of ancient China, youth was more than skin deep. It was power, continuity, and divine legitimacy. An emperor who could live forever would not only defy time, but rule without end, becoming a figure larger than life itself. The roots of this obsession lie deep within Taoist philosophy, which emphasized harmony with the cosmos, balance between yin and yang, and the cultivation of life force known as qi. According to Taoist thought, by nourishing qi and aligning oneself with the rhythms of nature, one could prolong life, maintain youth, and perhaps achieve immortality. This idea gave rise to practices of breathing exercises, meditation, special diets, and above all, alchemy. Alchemy in China was unlike the alchemy of medieval Europe, which sought to turn lead into gold. Instead, Chinese alchemists focused on crafting powerful elixirs that could restore youth or even make death irrelevant. These concoctions were often prepared in bronze cauldrons, using elaborate rituals, chants, and astrological timing. Their ingredients, however, were as strange as they were dangerous. Many elixirs contained mercury, arsenic, jade powder, cinnabar, mercury sulfide, and other toxic substances. The reasoning was symbolic. Mercury, with its liquid shimmer, seemed eternal and unchanging. Jade, with its hardness and luster, symbolized purity and incorruptibility. Cinnabar, bright red like blood, was linked to vitality and cosmic energy. To consume such substances was thought to infuse the body with their immortal qualities. Sadly, the effect was often the opposite. Countless seekers of eternal youth poisoned themselves, suffering slow, painful deaths. One of the most famous examples is Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of a unified China. Obsessed with immortality, he sent expeditions across seas to search for magical islands where the elixir might be found. He consulted alchemists, who fed him mercury-based potions, claiming they would prolong his youth. Instead, they hastened his death at the age of just 49. Ironically, his fear of mortality may have been what ended his life prematurely. Yet the pursuit did not end with him. Centuries of emperors, nobles, and wealthy patrons continued to fund alchemists, hoping that somewhere, hidden in the forests or mountains, was the secret to staying forever young. The court of Emperor Wu of Han, for instance, was filled with alchemists offering their recipes, promising that with the right combination of metals and minerals, youth could be preserved. Many of these emperors eventually died from elixir poisoning, victims of their own dreams. But it would be unfair to say that all Chinese approaches to youth were so dangerous. Alongside the hazardous world of alchemy, there flourished gentler traditions of health and longevity. These included herbal tonics, acupuncture, tai chi, and qigong exercises. Ginseng, goji berries, and reishi mushrooms were prized for their supposed ability to strengthen vitality and preserve youthful energy. Breathing techniques were developed to circulate qi, to calm the spirit, and to prevent the body from decaying under the weight of stress and age. Some of the most fascinating texts, like the Taoist classic Bao Puzi, written by the scholar Ge Hong in the 4th century, reveal a blend of both approaches. Ge Hong acknowledged the risks of dangerous elixirs, but also emphasized meditation, diet, and spiritual practice as ways to extend youth. He believed that immortality was possible, but only for those who balanced the physical with the spiritual, the external with the internal. In daily life, ordinary people also had their rituals for preserving youth. Women in ancient China often applied powders made from crushed pearls, believed to brighten the skin and ward off wrinkles. Bathing in herbal infusions of chrysanthemum or lotus flowers was thought to rejuvenate the body and calm the mind. These practices, though less dramatic than swallowing mercury, reflected the same underlying desire: to resist the relentless march of time. What is particularly calming about the Chinese approach is that it wasn't solely about clinging to youth in desperation. It was about harmony, balance, and alignment with nature. In their gardens, in their poetry, in their daily tea ceremonies, there was a recognition that beauty and youth were not simply about appearance, but about inner vitality, about the spirit being at peace. To them, the wrinkles of age were not always signs of decay, but sometimes marks of wisdom. Yet still, beneath that acceptance, the dream of eternal youth lingered, leading some down dangerous paths. Today, when we hear of anti-aging supplements or modern elixirs claiming to prolong life, we may smile at how familiar it all sounds. The bottles are shinier, the ingredients more refined, but the promise is ancient. Take this, drink that, and you will not grow old. In many ways, we are continuing the same story begun by Chinese alchemists thousands of years ago, searching, endlessly searching, for the fountain of youth. The Chinese pursuit of youth and immortality is one of the most fascinating chapters in human history, because it shows both the heights of human imagination and the dangers of human ambition. To want to stay young forever is such a deeply human dream, but when chased recklessly, it can become a nightmare. And yet, in the quiet gardens, in the cups of herbal tea, in the graceful movements of qigong, we still glimpse that gentler side of the quest, the idea that perhaps youth is not a thing to be seized, but a balance to be cultivated, a light to be kept glowing within. Section 4. Roman spa rituals and the art of preserving youth. If the Greeks admired athletic bodies and the Chinese searched for immortality in elixirs, the Romans approached youth from a different angle, through water, ritual, and the art of daily care. To the Romans, youthfulness was not only about smooth skin or strong bodies, but about vitality that could be maintained through structured routines, communal bathing, and the enjoyment of life's pleasures in moderation. At the heart of this culture stood the Roman baths, great complexes of stone, marble, and steaming pools that were more than just places to get clean. They were temples of health, social hubs, and in many ways, laboratories of youth. Imagine walking into one of these spaces. Vast halls echoing with voices, floors warmed by underground fires, the air heavy with steam and scented oils. Here, Roman citizens moved through a carefully designed ritual, believed not only to cleanse the body, but to restore its strength and beauty. A typical bath ritual followed a progression. First, one would enter the tepidarium, a warm room that relaxed the muscles and opened the pores. Then came the caldarium, a hot, steamy chamber that encouraged sweating, releasing what the Romans believed were impurities that aged the body. Finally, the bather plunged into the frigidarium, a cold pool that tightened the skin, invigorated the senses, and gave a feeling of youthful alertness. This alternating cycle of heat and cold was considered a way to keep the body resilient, to shock it gently back into vitality. But the baths were not only about water. They were places of massage, scrubbing, and perfuming. Attendants would rub the skin with oils and scrape it clean with a tool called a strigil. The process removed dirt and dead cells, leaving the skin smooth and glowing. Oils infused with herbs like rosemary, lavender, and myrrh were applied to moisturize and perfume the body. For Romans, soft and well-oiled skin was a mark of youth and refinement. Diet also played a role in preserving youth. Wealthier Romans sought foods that were considered nourishing and restorative: figs, honey, olives, and fresh vegetables. They believed that balance was essential. Too much indulgence in wine or heavy meats would weigh the body down and hasten aging. Philosophers like Seneca even wrote about moderation as a kind of medicine, where self-control kept the spirit youthful. Cosmetics, too, had their place. Roman women in particular used face masks made of honey, barley, and milk to soften their skin. Some applied chalk powders or crushed minerals to brighten their complexion, while others darkened their eyebrows with soot. These practices echoed the natural remedies of earlier cultures, showing that the desire to preserve youthful beauty was shared across the ancient world. For men, maintaining youth was also tied to vigor and appearance. Athletes and soldiers used oils to keep their skin supple and to emphasize muscular tone. Even emperors took part in these rituals. It's said that Augustus, the first emperor of Rome, carefully cultivated a youthful image through clean living and moderation, avoiding the excesses that had aged many of his contemporaries. Beyond physical care, the Romans understood something deeply calming. Youth was also about the mind and spirit. Leisure, conversation, and philosophy were seen as nourishment for the soul. In the baths, people not only cleansed their bodies, but also engaged in discussions about politics, art, and philosophy. This mental stimulation was viewed as part of a healthy, youthful life. A sharp mind, after all, was just as important as a smooth face. Interestingly, Roman attitudes toward aging carried a duality. On one hand, they celebrated youthful beauty and strength. On the other, they respected the wisdom of age, particularly when coupled with dignity and self-control. This balance created a culture where the pursuit of youth was not only about resisting time, but about living in a way that allowed both body and spirit to remain vibrant as long as possible. Even today, echoes of Roman practices remain. Modern spas, with their hot tubs, cold plunges, saunas, and massages, are direct descendants of Roman bathhouses. The idea that alternating heat and cold can refresh the body, that oil can nourish the skin, that moderation in diet preserves vitality, all of these have survived through centuries, reminding us that in many ways, the Romans understood timeless truths about caring for youth. In the quiet steam of a Roman bath, in the cooling plunge into a pool of clear water. There was a moment when one might feel renewed, as if time itself had slowed, as if age could be pushed back, even just for a little while. And perhaps that, more than immortality, was their greatest secret, the creation of daily rituals that brought peace, balance, and a gentle touch of youth into ordinary life. Section 5. Ayurveda and the Indian Path to Ageless Balance. In the vast landscape of ancient traditions, few systems approach the art of staying young with as much depth and subtlety as Ayurveda, the classical medical science of India. Rooted in Sanskrit texts written more than 2,000 years ago, Ayurveda, meaning knowledge of life, offered not just cures for illness, but a complete philosophy of how to live in harmony with nature, the seasons, and one's own inner rhythms. For those who sought youth, Ayurveda promised not eternal life, but a life lived fully, with vigor, clarity, and balance. Unlike the Romans, who sought youth through baths and oils, or the Chinese, who turned to elixirs and breath practices, Ayurvedic wisdom framed youth as a state of balance among body, mind, and spirit. When harmony was maintained, the body radiated vitality, the skin glowed, and the mind stayed sharp. When imbalance took hold, through poor diet, stress, or neglect, aging was said to accelerate, leaving one dull, weak, or weary long before their time. At the heart of Ayurveda's approach were the doshas, Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. These energies, present in every person in unique combinations, governed how the body functioned. To remain youthful, one had to honor their natural constitution, adjusting food, sleep, and lifestyle to keep these forces in balance. For instance, someone with a dominant Vata, the energy of air and movement, was encouraged to eat warming foods and follow steady routines, preventing the dryness and restlessness that could prematurely age them. Meanwhile, a Pitta type, ruled by fire, might be guided toward cooling herbs and calming practices to avoid the heat and intensity that could burn the body out too quickly. Food was perhaps the most important medicine. Ancient Ayurvedic texts describe diets rich in fresh fruits, grains, lentils, and vegetables, seasoned with spices believed to slow the aging process. Turmeric, with its golden glow, was praised for purifying the blood and brightening the skin. Ashwagandha, often called the strength of 10 horses, was valued for restoring energy and calming the mind. Ghee, clarified butter, was seen as a nourishing elixir that preserved strength and youthfulness when consumed in moderation. These ingredients were not just nutrition, they were part of a ritual of self-care, a way of feeding both body and soul. Yet food alone was never enough. Ayurveda stressed the importance of daily rituals to protect and preserve youth. One such practice was abhyanga, the art of oil massage. Warm sesame oil, coconut oil, or herbal blends were massaged into the skin to moisturize, improve circulation, and strengthen the body. The act itself was considered deeply calming, helping to quiet the mind while keeping the skin supple and resilient. Even today, those who follow Ayurvedic traditions describe this practice as leaving them not only refreshed, but as if they had stepped a little further back from time's grasp. Cleansing rituals, too, played a role. Techniques like nasya, clearing the sinuses with herbal oils, or neti, rinsing the nasal passages with salt water, were believed to protect vitality by ensuring clear breathing and sharp senses. The idea was simple. When the channels of the body flowed freely, energy could circulate, preventing stagnation, fatigue, and decline. Perhaps most striking was Ayurveda's focus on the mind. Stress, fear, and sorrow were believed to age a person faster than any wrinkle or illness. Meditation, chanting, and breath practices were prescribed to quiet the restless mind, cultivating a sense of inner peace. A calm mind, Ayurveda taught, radiated outward, softening the features, relaxing the body, and granting an appearance of youth that no cosmetic could replace. Sleep, too, was treated as a medicine. Proper rest, in alignment with the rhythms of nature, was described as one of the pillars of youth. Rising with the sun and winding down at dusk kept the body in sync with the natural world. The belief was that those who respected these cycles aged gracefully, while those who ignored them found themselves quickly depleted. The Ayurvedic texts also contain recipes for more ambitious rasayanas, or rejuvenation therapies. These were often elaborate herbal tonics, sometimes prepared over weeks or months, designed to strengthen immunity, restore vigor, and keep the body young. Some included exotic ingredients like shilajit, a resin that oozed from the Himalayan rocks, prized for its restorative qualities. While these tonics were not guarantees of immortality, they embodied a hopeful promise that through harmony with nature, one could extend the springtime of life. Beyond herbs, oils, and rituals, Ayurveda offered a perspective that feels surprisingly modern. Youth was not about denying age, but about living in alignment with life itself. Someone who ate with mindfulness, moved with awareness, and cultivated inner peace was seen as youthful, even if their hair had turned silver. A body might wrinkle, but the spirit could remain ageless if nurtured. This outlook gave Ayurveda a calming quality that sets it apart. While other cultures often fought against age, Ayurveda invited people to flow with time, to soften its effects by respecting the body's needs. It was less about conquering mortality and more about extending vitality for as long as possible, so that life was not just long, but meaningful. And so, in ancient India, youth was not merely a number or even the smoothness of skin. It was a balance of energies, a sparkle in the eyes, and a spirit at peace. Those who lived by Ayurvedic principles did not cling to the desperate hope of immortality. Instead, they embraced daily rituals of harmony, creating lives where age moved more gently and where the flame of youth burned a little longer than it might have otherwise. Section 6. Egyptian Obsessions with Eternal Youth. When we think of ancient Egypt, we often picture monumental pyramids, golden sarcophagi, and the mysterious beauty of hieroglyphs etched into stone. But behind the grandeur of pharaohs and temples was another, quieter obsession, an enduring quest for youth and eternal life. For the Egyptians, to remain young was not just a matter of vanity. It was deeply tied to their vision of the afterlife, their relationship with the gods, and their desire to preserve both body and soul against the passage of time. The Egyptians were perhaps the most famous preservers of youth in history, not only for the living, but also for the dead. Their techniques of mummification reflected a profound belief. If the body could be preserved, the spirit could live forever. Wrapping the deceased in linens, embalming with resins, and carefully protecting the skin were all extensions of their obsession with holding on to youthfulness. In their view, decay was the enemy, a sign that life's essence was slipping away. By preventing it, they hoped to cheat age, at least symbolically. But these practices were not reserved for the dead alone. The living Egyptians were remarkably meticulous about their appearance, hygiene, and vitality. Maintaining youthfulness was seen as a form of holiness, after all. To look vibrant was to honor the gods who had bestowed life. Cosmetics played a central role in this pursuit. Egyptian men and women alike used kohl eyeliner, not merely for beauty, but also to protect their eyes from harsh sunlight and infections. This functional beauty carried an aura of youth. as clear, bright eyes symbolized vigor and life force. Malachite, a green mineral, was ground into pigment and used on the eyelids, believed to invoke divine protection while also freshening the face. For lips and cheeks, they created tints from red ochre mixed with oils or fats, giving the skin a youthful flush. The Egyptians were also among the first to develop sophisticated skincare regimens. Recipes preserved in papyri describe masks made of honey, milk, and natural oils, which were applied to soften and rejuvenate the skin. Honey, with its antibacterial qualities, kept the complexion clear, while milk, especially sour milk rich in lactic acid, was prized for smoothing wrinkles and brightening the skin. Modern skincare experts might smile at the familiarity. Even today, lactic acid remains a key ingredient in anti-aging treatments. One of the most famous figures associated with these rituals was Queen Cleopatra VII. She was said to bathe in donkey's milk, a practice that, while sounding extravagant, reflected genuine Egyptian knowledge of milk's rejuvenating properties. Legends describe her traveling with hundreds of donkeys to ensure she always had fresh milk available for her baths. Whether entirely true or embellished over time, the story captures the Egyptian spirit of treating youth not as an accident, but as something cultivated daily through ritual and care. Perfume also played a part in this youthful image. Egyptians believed that fragrance connected them to the divine, and sweet-smelling skin was equated with vitality. They created elaborate perfumes from frankincense, myrrh, lotus, and cinnamon. These scents were thought not only to please the gods, but also to elevate one's spirit, keeping the body fresh and the soul energized. In a society where heat and dust were constant companions, smelling pleasant and feeling refreshed were important aspects of maintaining a youthful presence. Diet, too, was central to Egyptian notions of youth. They valued foods believed to restore strength and vitality. Dates, figs, fish, and onions were common staples. Garlic was consumed for stamina and longevity, even fed to laborers building the pyramids to strengthen them against fatigue. Beer, brewed from barley, and wine made from grapes were consumed not only for pleasure, but also as energizing tonics. A balanced diet, in Egyptian thought, helped keep the body strong and the spirit lively, ensuring that age arrived more slowly. Beyond beauty and diet, the Egyptians were deeply spiritual in their approach to youth. They saw vitality as a gift of the gods, something to be maintained through rituals, prayers, and offerings. Temples often contained images of gods and goddesses associated with rejuvenation. Hathor, goddess of love and beauty, and Isis, goddess of magic and healing, were invoked for their powers to restore youth and vitality. The act of honoring these deities was itself a kind of renewal, aligning the human body with divine energy. There was also the concept of Heka, or magic, woven into their understanding of youth. Amulets, spells, and charms were used to protect against aging, disease, and weakness. Some carried scarabs, symbols of rebirth and regeneration, as reminders that youth could be renewed, just as the scarab beetle rolled the sun across the sky each day. By wearing such charms, Egyptians felt they carried with them a spark of eternal life, shielding them from the creeping touch of age. But perhaps the most striking aspect of Egyptian youth culture was its focus on legacy. For them, youth was not just physical, it was remembered through art. Statues and inscriptions. A pharaoh immortalized in stone, with smooth skin and strong features, was forever preserved at the peak of youth, regardless of how they looked in life. In this way, Egyptians extended their youth, not only through cosmetics and rituals, but also through the permanence of their monuments. Even thousands of years later, we look upon their statues and see them as they wish to be remembered, timeless, vibrant, and untouched by age. In all these practices, cosmetics, skincare, perfumes, diet, spiritual rituals, and monuments, the Egyptians demonstrated a profound determination to remain youthful. To them, youth was a reflection of divine favor, a symbol of immortality in both body and soul. While time inevitably moved forward, the Egyptians fought it with every tool they had, leaving behind a legacy of beauty and vitality that continues to inspire us today. Section 7. Youth and Immortality in Greek Philosophy. When we turn to the world of ancient Greece, we step into a culture that prized both the beauty of the body and the strength of the mind. Unlike the Egyptians, who often emphasized external rituals and material practices to preserve youth, the Greeks approached the question of staying young from multiple angles. They admired the youthful form, celebrated athletic vigor, but also asked a deeper question: could the spirit itself remain young even as the body aged? This blend of philosophy, athleticism, and aesthetics created a unique approach to youth, one that still resonates today. For the Greeks, physical beauty and youth were nearly synonymous with divinity. Gods and goddesses were depicted in sculpture as eternally young, their bodies perfectly proportioned and free from signs of age. Apollo, the god of light, was portrayed as a radiant youth, embodying the perfection of male beauty. Aphrodite, goddess of love, was imagined as an eternally youthful woman, her beauty never fading. To be young was not only desirable, it was a reflection of divine order. The human body in its prime was considered a small echo of divine perfection, and so preserving that appearance became a cultural priority. This admiration was not purely artistic. It was reflected in everyday life, especially in the emphasis on physical training. The Greek gymnasium was not only a place for exercise, it was a cultural hub where men trained their bodies to maintain youthful strength and vitality. Athletics were celebrated in festivals like the Olympic Games, where the youthful male form in motion symbolized vigor, health, and excellence. For the Greeks, physical training was a kind of ritual against aging, keeping the body resilient and the spirit alert. Diet also played a role in sustaining this youthful image. Ancient Greek writers often described foods believed to enhance vitality. Olives, honey, fresh fruits, and fish were staples of a healthy life. Honey, in particular, was revered for its immortal qualities, sweet, preserving, and full of energy. It was consumed not just as food, but also applied to wounds and skin, believed to ward off decay. Hippocrates, often called the father of medicine, recommended moderation in diet as the key to preserving health and prolonging youth. "Let food be thy medicine," he advised, and in that simple phrase, we hear an echo of the Greek pursuit of balance as a way of keeping age at bay. Yet the Greeks did not stop with diet or exercise. They also turned to the realm of philosophy to explore how one might remain young beyond the limits of the body. Plato, in his dialogues, suggested that true youth belonged to the soul. While the body inevitably weakened with age, the soul could remain vibrant through the pursuit of truth, beauty, and wisdom. To him, intellectual growth was a form of rejuvenation, refreshing the spirit even when the body faltered. In this way, philosophy became its own kind of anti-aging practice, offering a path to eternal youth, not through creams or rituals, but through contemplation and virtue. Socrates, too, expressed this belief in inner vitality. He often described himself as poor in appearance, but rich in spirit, suggesting that external youth was fleeting, while the vigor of the mind could endure. His focus on questioning, curiosity, and constant learning reflected a youthful mindset, always open, always exploring, never stagnant. For the Greeks, this attitude was just as valuable as a strong physique, for it kept the soul alive long after the body began to decline. There was also the Greek fascination with myth and immortality, stories that revealed how deeply they linked youth with the divine. Consider the myth of Eos, the goddess of dawn, who fell in love with a mortal man, Tithonus. She begged Zeus to grant him immortality so they could be together forever. Zeus agreed, but she forgot to ask for eternal youth. And so, while Tithonus lived on, he continued to age, growing frail, bent, and withered, until he was a husk of a man, unable to die, but long stripped of his youthful vigor. This story, retold in Greek poetry, reflected a profound fear that immortality without youth was a curse rather than a gift. For the Greeks, youth was the essence of life itself, something worth protecting at all costs. Greek physicians also contributed practical ideas for maintaining vitality. They emphasized the balance of humors: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. When these were in harmony, the body thrived. When imbalanced, it fell ill and aged more rapidly. To keep youth, one was advised to regulate diet, rest, and exercise to maintain this internal harmony. Baths, massages, and oils were used not just for cleanliness, but for invigorating the body, smoothing the skin, and keeping the muscles supple. In the Greek worldview, health, youth, and balance were inseparable. We should also not overlook the role of art and memory in preserving youth. The Greeks immortalized their heroes and athletes in marble, capturing them at the peak of vitality. Even today, statues of discus throwers or runners radiate a timeless youth, their forms untouched by centuries. Through sculpture and poetry, the Greeks extended youth into eternity, creating cultural symbols that never aged. In this sense, their art was a victory over time, allowing both gods and mortals to remain forever in their prime. Ultimately, the Greek pursuit of youth was a balance of the physical, the intellectual, and the spiritual. They believed in exercising the body, nourishing it with pure foods, and adorning it with oils and perfumes. Yet they also believed in keeping the mind curious and the soul aligned with virtue, so that even as the years passed, one could retain the freshness of spirit that made youth so radiant. For them, youth was not just a stage of life, it was an ideal, a way of being that could endure long after the body changed. In their mythology, philosophy, athletics, and medicine, the Greeks remind us that staying young was never only about appearances. It was about cultivating a harmony between body and soul, so that age might touch the body, but never truly conquer the spirit. And in that vision, we glimpse a culture that found youth not in denying time, but in embracing a timeless way of life. Section 8. Roman Rituals for Preserving Youth. The Romans inherited much from the Greeks, yet they developed their own approaches to the art of staying young. Roman society admired vitality, clear skin, a strong body, and an alert mind. To them, youth was tied to vigor, health, and social charm. Senators and generals wanted to appear strong and capable even into later years, while women of high rank sought beauty remedies that promised to keep their looks radiant. This concern with youth left traces in medicine, cosmetics, and even religious rituals. One of the most famous Roman methods for preserving youth was the public bath culture. Baths in Rome were not only about hygiene, they were daily rituals of rejuvenation. The warm steam opened pores, oils were rubbed into the skin, and massages relaxed weary muscles. Many believed these routines prevented aging by cleansing impurities from the body. Wealthier Romans added perfumes and herbal infusions to the bathwater, claiming rosemary or lavender could refresh the spirit. To step into the thermae was to step into a place where age seemed to pause, if only for a while. Roman women in particular relied heavily on cosmetics and creams. Recipes survive in Latin texts describing anti-wrinkle ointments made of frankincense, myrrh, honey, or even animal fats. Some creams included saffron for a golden glow, or rose water to soften skin. A popular whitening mask involved mixing lead with vinegar. Though we know today it was toxic, at the time it was praised for giving the skin a pale, youthful sheen. These remedies reveal how far Roman women went in their pursuit of beauty, risking health in exchange for the illusion of youth. The Roman diet also played a role in anti-aging efforts. Pliny the Elder wrote about foods thought to slow decline. Olives, figs, and mulberries were considered particularly healthful. Wine was consumed moderately, believed to strengthen the blood. Honey again appears as a near magical substance, both eaten and applied externally. The wealthy imported exotic spices, ginger, and cinnamon from the East, hoping these rare flavors carried life-preserving power. Meanwhile, simpler citizens relied on grains, vegetables, and pulses, trusting moderation to maintain vitality. There was also a fascination with elixirs and tonics. Physicians like Galen prescribed mixtures of herbs, minerals, and sometimes even ground-up pearls to strengthen the body against time. Some concoctions were designed to restore fertility or virility, linking youth with sexual vitality. Men might take tonics made of ginseng-like roots, while women consumed herbal infusions said to preserve softness of skin or brightness of eyes. These remedies blurred the line between medicine and magic, showing how deeply Romans hoped to resist age. Spiritual practices also supported this quest. The Romans offered prayers to deities associated with health and renewal. Salus, the goddess of well-being, and Aesculapius, the god of healing, were honored with sacrifices and vows. Rituals at temples often included drinking from sacred springs, thought to restore youthfulness. Some Romans even believed in charms and amulets carved with protective symbols to guard against aging. Though less practical than creams or diets, these practices reveal the deep emotional need for reassurance in the face of time. Men especially sought to maintain youthful strength, for it was tied to power and respect. The Roman military emphasized endurance, and even older generals kept up strict exercise routines, walking in armor, practicing sword drills. Or swimming in the Tiber were ways to resist decline. In this, Roman men reflected their culture's ideal, that authority was not just political, but also embodied in the appearance of vitality. To look frail was to risk losing influence. The pursuit of youth even shaped Roman leisure and fashion. Bright clothing, perfumed oils, and elaborate hairstyles all carried youthful associations. Wigs made of blonde or red hair, imported from Northern Europe, were fashionable among Roman women who wanted to imitate the freshness of youth. Men dyed their hair with dark pastes to cover gray, while others applied powders to reduce baldness. Looking young was not only personal vanity, it signaled prosperity and energy in a competitive society. But not all Romans trusted cosmetics and charms. Philosophers like Seneca argued that true youth came from moderation and inner peace. He warned against indulgence and taught that a calm spirit preserved vitality better than any cream. For Stoics, the body aged no matter what, but the mind could remain evergreen if it stayed free from worry and excess. In this way, Roman thought balanced between material remedies and philosophical acceptance. Taken together, Roman practices reveal a culture where youth was both admired and anxiously pursued. From daily baths to exotic tonics, from whitening creams to philosophical calm, every layer of Roman life reflected the longing to hold back time. They believed in practical remedies, spiritual rituals, and even dangerous substances, all in service of appearing fresh, strong, and vibrant. The Roman pursuit of youth shows us a society deeply human, not so different from our own. Their baths echo in modern spas. Their creams foreshadow today's cosmetics. Their tonics resemble our supplements. Though centuries have passed, the dream of holding on to youth remains unchanged. In the steam of the baths, in the scent of oils, in the prayers whispered at temples, the Romans remind us that the fight against age is as old as civilization itself. Section 9. Youthful Elixirs and Alchemy in Ancient China. In ancient China, the desire to preserve youth was not just a matter of beauty or personal vanity. It was deeply tied to philosophy, spirituality, and the search for harmony with nature. The Chinese approach to youthfulness was both practical and mystical, blending diet, herbs, breathing exercises, meditation, and even alchemy. For them, to stay young was not only about delaying wrinkles or weakness. It was about maintaining balance between body, spirit, and the vital energy they called qi. Perhaps the most fascinating aspect of Chinese efforts to preserve youth was the tradition of Taoist alchemy. Taoist philosophers believed that life energy could be refined and strengthened through careful practice. Some took this idea literally, experimenting with physical alchemy, mixing herbs, minerals, and even metals into potions that promised eternal life. Gold, jade, and cinnabar were especially prized as they symbolized purity and endurance. Unfortunately, many of these elixirs were poisonous. Some emperors who sought immortality through alchemy, such as Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of a unified China, died from consuming mercury-based potions. Still, the belief persisted that somewhere the perfect elixir of youth awaited discovery. Alongside dangerous alchemy was the safer and more enduring path of internal alchemy. This practice focused on controlling the body's energies through breathing, meditation, and gentle movement. Techniques like Qigong and Tai Chi trace their origins here, emphasizing slow, deliberate motions and deep breaths to circulate qi. Practitioners believed this nourished the organs, calmed the spirit, and preserved vitality well into old age. In this way, youth was not seen as a fleeting stage of life, but as an energy one could sustain through discipline and harmony. Diet was another cornerstone of Chinese anti-aging traditions. Ancient texts like the Huangdi Neijing, the Yellow Emperor's Inner Canon, described foods that promoted longevity. Walnuts were said to strengthen the brain, goji berries to brighten the eyes, ginseng to renew strength, and green tea to cleanse the body. Honey again appeared as a natural preservative of youth, echoing beliefs from other cultures. Many of these remedies are still popular today, a testament to their enduring influence. Beyond food, jade played a unique role in the pursuit of youth. To the Chinese, jade was more than a beautiful stone. It was believed to contain life-giving energy. Wealthy nobles drank from jade cups or used jade rollers to massage the skin, hoping to absorb its vitality. Jade burial suits, stitched together with gold, were made for princes and aristocrats, not only to protect their bodies after death, but to preserve the spirit's youth in eternity. This fascination shows how youth and immortality were seen as intertwined, reaching beyond life into the realm of the soul. Beauty practices also reflected this longing for eternal freshness. Women of the Tang and Han dynasties used rice powder to whiten their skin, rouge to give their cheeks a youthful blush, and herbal pastes to soften wrinkles. Some facial masks were made of pearl powder, believed to brighten the complexion and slow aging. Others applied flower petals steeped in oils, hoping to capture the vitality of spring. These rituals reveal that while philosophy and spirituality shaped the Chinese approach, everyday remedies and cosmetics also played a part. There was also a spiritual dimension in the quest for immortals, figures said to have achieved eternal youth through virtue and discipline. Taoist stories describe hermits who lived in mountains, sustained by dew and mist, who never seemed to age. To many, these immortals represented the highest possibility, that through purity, meditation, and detachment from worldly excess, one could transcend time altogether. The belief in such figures inspired countless seekers to adopt gentle living, clean diets, and spiritual practices in hopes of attaining agelessness. Chinese medicine also explored the connection between emotions and aging. Excessive anger was thought to damage the liver, sadness to weaken the lungs, and fear to drain the kidneys. Since each organ was linked to vitality, managing emotions was seen as essential to preserving youth. Meditation, poetry, music, and time in nature were encouraged as ways to calm the mind and maintain inner balance. In this sense, youthfulness was as much about mental serenity as about physical appearance. Interestingly, Chinese emperors often gathered specialists in medicine, alchemy, and ritual to prolong their lives. They commissioned rare herbs, sacred springs, and mountain retreats said to hold the secret of youth. Some even employed immortality chefs who designed special diets of exotic mushrooms, roots, and teas. These royal pursuits show how deeply the desire for youth was woven into the very fabric of power and empire. To appear ageless was to embody the mandate of heaven itself. Despite the tragedies of toxic elixirs and the sometimes extreme quests for immortality, the Chinese tradition left behind a legacy that remains influential today. Practices like Tai Chi, herbal medicine, jade therapy, and mindful living are all modern echoes of ancient methods to maintain vitality. What is striking is how holistic their approach was, combining body, mind, and spirit into a single vision of youth. Rather than chasing youth as a surface illusion, they saw it as a harmony to be cultivated within. To study these traditions is to glimpse a culture that pursued youth not with desperation, but with a kind of reverence. Even when misguided by dangerous substances, the underlying goal was noble: to live in balance, to extend the joy of life. and to reflect the eternal rhythms of the natural world. Their belief that youth could be nourished through breath, diet, and harmony offers us a timeless reminder that perhaps the secret to staying young is not in fighting against age, but in learning how to flow with life itself. Section 10. Ayurvedic Practices for Agelessness in Ancient India. In the ancient world, India developed one of the most sophisticated systems of health and longevity. Ayurveda, often translated as the science of life. More than 3,000 years old, Ayurveda was not only about curing disease, but also about preventing decline, preserving strength, and extending vitality. At its heart was the idea that aging could be slowed, or even partially reversed, by living in harmony with one's natural constitution and the rhythms of the universe. Ayurvedic philosophy divides human beings into three doshas: Vata, air and movement; Pitta, fire and transformation; and Kapha, earth and stability. Each person was believed to have a dominant desha, and aging was thought to accelerate when the doshas fell out of balance. Thus, the Ayurvedic approach to staying young was deeply personalized. The foods one ate, the herbs one consumed, the daily rituals one practiced, all depended on keeping these vital forces aligned. One of the most famous concepts in Ayurveda is Rasayana, which translates to the path of essence. This was a branch of medicine entirely devoted to rejuvenation and longevity. Rasayana therapies included special diets, tonics, herbal preparations, meditation, and even moral living. They promised sharper memory, glowing skin, stronger immunity, and longer life. Texts like the Charaka Samhita and Sushruta Samhita described countless formulations aimed at preserving youth, some of which are still used in modern Ayurvedic practice. Among the most prized rejuvenating herbs was amalaki, Indian gooseberry, revered for its high vitamin C content and antioxidant power. Combined with honey, it was believed to restore vitality and improve digestion. Ashwagandha, sometimes called Indian ginseng, was another cornerstone, thought to build strength, reduce stress, and maintain youthful energy. Shatavari, a type of wild asparagus, was prescribed especially for women, believed to enhance fertility and preserve youthful radiance. Together, these herbs formed the backbone of Ayurvedic rejuvenation, each chosen not only for physical benefits, but also for balancing the doshas. Diet played a central role in this quest for agelessness. Fresh fruits, whole grains, warm milk with spices, and clarified butter, ghee, were staples in rejuvenating diets. Ghee was considered especially powerful, thought to lubricate the body, strengthen tissues, and extend life. Spices like turmeric, cardamom, and cinnamon were not just flavorings, but medicines, keeping the blood clean, the organs strong, and the mind sharp. The emphasis on whole, nourishing foods was designed to fuel the body's natural regenerative processes rather than burden it with decay. Equally important was the daily routine, or dinacharya. Ayurveda taught that waking early, greeting the sun, and performing gentle cleansing rituals prepared the body for vitality. Oil pulling, swishing sesame or coconut oil in the mouth, tongue scraping, and bathing with herbal powders were everyday practices meant to purify the body and keep it youthful. Massages with warm oils, known as abhyanga, were another cornerstone. Practitioners believed that regular massage not only moisturized the skin, but also slowed aging, calmed the nerves, and kept the body supple like that of a child. Ayurveda also emphasized the power of the mind in aging. Stress, anger, and grief were believed to speed up the aging process by weakening the heart and disturbing the doshas. Meditation, chanting, yoga, and pranayama, breathing exercises, were recommended to maintain inner peace. These practices were not luxuries, but essential medicines for preserving youth. By calming the mind, one preserved the body. By keeping the spirit light, one kept the skin smooth and the steps steady. Another fascinating element was the role of ritual purity and ethics in anti-aging. Ayurvedic texts taught that immoral actions, dishonesty, or cruelty would disrupt one's life force and shorten one's years. Compassion, truthfulness, and moderation were considered medicines as powerful as herbs. In this way, youthfulness was seen not only as a physical state, but as a reflection of moral and spiritual health. To live kindly was to live long. Royal courts often sponsored elaborate rasayana programs. Kings and nobles, eager to extend their reigns, would retreat into secluded sanctuaries for 40 days or more, following strict diets, herbal regimens, and meditations. These programs sometimes included consuming chawanprash, a rich herbal jam made from amalaki, ghee, honey, and dozens of spices. Named after the sage Chawan, who was said to have regained youth through its use, it remains one of the most famous Ayurvedic tonics even today. Interestingly, Ayurveda did not promise literal immortality. Instead, it taught that one could live a long, vigorous, and youthful life by respecting natural cycles. Sleep, diet, and activity were all tied to the turning of the seasons, the rising of the sun, and the phases of life. Just as the body is born, grows, and matures, so too it inevitably declines. The goal was not to deny aging, but to age gracefully, preserving vitality and clarity for as long as possible. Perhaps what makes the Ayurvedic approach so remarkable is its holistic vision. Rather than seeing youth as something to chase desperately with potions or illusions, Ayurveda taught that true youth came from alignment with nature, with one's body, and with one's soul. A youthful person was not necessarily wrinkle-free, but was vibrant, clear-minded, energetic, and at peace. This definition continues to resonate today, reminding us that the secret to agelessness may not lie in fighting time, but in living wisely within it. Even now, as modern science investigates the benefits of herbs like ashwagandha, turmeric, and amalaki, we see echoes of these ancient practices: yoga, meditation, and mindful eating, all with roots in Ayurveda, remain cornerstones of longevity and wellness movements worldwide. The ancient Indian vision of youth has endured not because it promised miracles, but because it offered a balanced way of living that keeps the flame of vitality glowing. Section 11. The Egyptian Quest for Youthful Immortality. Few civilizations were as obsessed with defeating age and death as the ancient Egyptians. For them, youth was not only a physical state, but also a divine gift, a sign of closeness to the gods and preparation for eternal life in the afterworld. To stay young in this life was to prepare for immortality in the next. Their entire culture, from medicine to magic, was steeped in the pursuit of preserving beauty, strength, and vitality against the relentless march of time. The Egyptians believed that the gods themselves embodied eternal youth. Osiris, god of resurrection, and Ra, the ever-renewing sun, symbolized the cycle of death and rebirth. Humans, too, could tap into this cycle by practicing certain rituals, consuming special substances, and maintaining purity. Pharaohs, in particular, were seen as semi-divine beings, and their youthfulness was essential not only to their personal well-being, but also to the stability of the kingdom. If a ruler appeared aged and weak, it was considered a bad omen for the land itself. One of the most fascinating aspects of Egyptian anti-aging practices was their cosmetics and ointments. While makeup is often associated today with appearance, for Egyptians, it was medicine, magic, and protection rolled into one. Black coal applied around the eyes did more than create a striking appearance. It contained lead salts that killed bacteria and reduced eye infections. By keeping the eyes healthy and bright, coal preserved the image of youth. Similarly, green malachite eye paints were thought to invoke the healing power of the gods. Smooth skin, unlined eyes, and vibrant color all signaled vitality. Skincare was equally important. The harsh desert sun and dry climate made oils and creams essential. Egyptians used castor oil, moringa oil, and almond oil as moisturizers, often scented with myrrh or frankincense. Honey, with its antibacterial and hydrating qualities, was a common ingredient in rejuvenating masks. Milk baths, famously associated with Queen Cleopatra, were believed to soften the skin and restore its youthful glow. Modern science confirms that lactic acid in milk acts as a gentle exfoliant, making this ancient ritual more than just legend. But beauty alone was not enough. Egyptians also experimented with dietary and medicinal methods of preserving youth. Garlic and onions, considered sacred, were consumed not only for strength, but for their supposed anti-aging powers. Dates and figs provided natural sugars and minerals believed to fuel vitality. Beer and bread, staples of the Egyptian diet, were enriched with herbs thought to cleanse the body and keep it balanced. In their medical papyri, physicians recorded recipes for potions aimed at extending life, often combining honey, herbs, resins, and minerals into complex elixirs. The Immerse papyrus, one of the oldest medical texts in the world, describes remedies for wrinkles, hair loss, and other signs of aging. One recipe for keeping hair dark involved boiling the hooves of donkeys and applying the mixture to the scalp. Another mixture of juniper berries, oil, and frankincense was said to rejuvenate the skin. These may sound unusual today, but they reflect a deep desire to slow the visible signs of aging and maintain the vigor of youth. Equally central to Egyptian beliefs was the practice of ritual purification. Daily washing, often with natron, a natural salt, was not merely about hygiene, but about spiritual renewal. By cleansing the body, one renewed the spirit, and in doing so, preserved youthfulness. Priests in particular adhered to strict bathing rituals, shaving their bodies and anointing themselves with oils to appear eternally pure. In Egyptian thought, decay and dirt were linked to age and death, while cleanliness and fragrance symbolized life and youth. Perfumes and incense also played a role in staying young. Fragrance was considered divine breath, capable of invigorating both the body and soul. Kaifi, a famous Egyptian incense made from honey, wine, raisins, and aromatic herbs, was burned nightly to promote relaxation and healing. Inhaling its fumes was thought to restore balance, refresh the spirit, and extend life. Oils scented with lotus, lily, or myrrh were used on the skin, believed to ward off disease while keeping the body supple and youthful. The Egyptians also paid great attention to hair and wigs. Hair was a powerful symbol of vitality, and losing it was one of the most dreaded signs of aging. Both men and women wore wigs made of human hair or plant fibers, styled to look youthful and full. Special oils were applied to prevent balding, and henna was used to dye gray hair, restoring a more youthful appearance. By covering thinning hair or masking gray, Egyptians maintained the illusion of eternal youth even into old age. Perhaps the most extreme reflection of their quest for youth came in their obsession with the afterlife. Mummification itself was not only about preserving the dead, but about suspending decay, keeping the body youthful for eternity. Organs were carefully removed, the body treated with resins and oils, and the skin wrapped in linens. This process was not seen as grotesque, but as sacred, ensuring that the deceased would be reborn young and whole in the next world. To the Egyptians, the ultimate victory over age was immortality. Yet, what makes their practices remarkable is how holistic they were. Youth was not just a matter of physical appearance, but of spiritual balance, diet, ritual, and even cosmic alignment. The rising and setting sun, the flooding of the Nile, the cycles of nature, all were tied to the Egyptian understanding of rejuvenation. To stay young was to live in harmony with these cycles, to protect the body with ointments and oils, to cleanse the spirit with rituals, and to trust that in death, one's youth would be restored forever. Even today, many of their practices echo in modern beauty and wellness. From milk baths to essential oils, from herbal remedies to cosmetic routines, the Egyptian pursuit of youth left a legacy that still shapes how we think about aging. Cleopatra's allure, immortalized in history, continues to symbolize the idea that beauty and vitality can transcend time. Section 12. The Chinese Elixirs of Immortality. In ancient China, the quest to remain youthful and live a long life was intertwined with spirituality, medicine, and sometimes even dangerous experimentation. The Chinese believed that the body contained life energy called qi, which could be strengthened, refined, and preserved through careful practices. Maintaining this energy was essential for staying young. Beyond diet, exercise, and meditation, many sought more immediate results in the form of elixirs and potions. One of the most fascinating aspects of Chinese anti-aging practices was the tradition of alchemy. Taoist alchemists combined herbs, minerals, and sometimes metals into potions that promised rejuvenation or even immortality. Gold, jade, mercury, and cinnabar were frequently used, believed to contain properties that could strengthen the body and spirit. Some emperors, including Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of a unified China, famously consumed these elixirs in hopes of living forever. Ironically, some of these substances were toxic, and their consumption often led to illness or death. Yet the belief in the transformative power of these potions remained strong for centuries. Herbs were considered far safer and were widely used in Chinese medicine. Ginseng, for example, was highly prized for its supposed ability to restore energy, sharpen the mind, and maintain youthful strength. Rahanya, a type of root, was believed to support kidney health and prevent the appearance of gray hair. Goji berries were thought to improve eyesight and strengthen vitality. Practitioners carefully combined these ingredients in teas, powders, or tonics, often in recipes that had been passed down for generations. Chinese physicians also emphasized the role of internal balance in preserving youth. They believed that emotional and spiritual harmony was as important as physical care. Anger, anxiety, and sadness were thought to accelerate aging by disturbing the flow of qi. Meditation, controlled breathing exercises, and gentle movement, precursors to practices like Tai Chi and Qigong, were encouraged to cultivate calmness, clarity, and energy. In this way, Youthfulness was as much about the mind as the body, and inner serenity was considered a potent tool against the signs of aging. Diet played an essential role in the Chinese approach to longevity. Fresh fruits, vegetables, grains, and proteins were consumed with the intention of nourishing the organs and strengthening qi. Foods such as black sesame seeds, walnuts, and lotus seeds were considered particularly beneficial for preserving vitality. Traditional texts advised eating according to the seasons, believing that aligning diet with nature's rhythms could harmonize the body and slow the aging process. Tea, especially green tea, was valued not only for its flavor, but for its antioxidant properties, which were thought to cleanse the body and maintain vigor. Certain practices were believed to rejuvenate the body more directly. Baths infused with herbs like chrysanthemum or ginseng were common among those who could afford them. Intended to refresh the skin and invigorate the senses, massage using oils and special powders was thought to stimulate energy channels, improve circulation, and maintain suppleness. Even hair care played a role. Herbal washes were used to keep hair thick, dark, and healthy, reflecting vitality outwardly. In Chinese thought, outward appearance mirrored inner energy, so preserving beauty was inseparable from maintaining life force. Spiritual rituals were also central to the Chinese pursuit of youth. Taoist practitioners often retreated to mountains or remote areas to meditate and refine their qi, believing that the purity of the natural environment could prolong life. Sacred herbs, water from holy springs, and incantations were incorporated into rituals designed to restore the body and spirit. The combination of nature, meditation, and carefully prepared substances created a holistic approach to anti-aging, linking physical well-being with moral and spiritual health. Some emperors even maintained imperial laboratories where alchemists experimented endlessly in search of the perfect elixir. These courts sometimes hosted immortality chefs who prepared diets with rare herbs, mushrooms, and other ingredients believed to enhance longevity. The goal was not only to preserve the ruler's youth, but to symbolize the harmony between the emperor, the state, and the cosmos. To remain strong and vibrant was to ensure that the mandate of heaven continued uninterrupted. Despite occasional deadly mistakes, the tradition of Chinese longevity elixirs left a lasting legacy. Many modern practices, including herbal tonics, dietary supplements, meditation, and qigong, are direct descendants of these ancient efforts. The Chinese view of youth as a state of energetic balance, nurtured through daily practice, diet, and moral living, offers an approach to aging that is both practical and profoundly holistic. Ultimately, the Chinese pursuit of immortality and youth reflects a deep understanding of life as a continuous process. The body, mind, and spirit are interconnected, and each requires care, attention, and balance. By honoring natural cycles, refining energy, and embracing both spiritual and physical remedies, the Chinese sought to maintain youth not merely as appearance, but as a reflection of vitality, wisdom, and harmony. Their methods remind us that the art of staying young has always been a blend of science, spirituality, and hope. Section 13. Secrets of Youth in Medieval Europe. In medieval Europe, the pursuit of youth was intertwined with superstition, medicine, and daily life. People believed that the body could be preserved and rejuvenated through a combination of diet, potions, rituals, and careful attention to both the body and spirit. Aging was often seen as a natural process, but many sought ways to delay it, keep their skin soft and retain strength for as long as possible. One popular practice was the use of herbal remedies. Apothecaries and healers stocked hundreds of herbs, each believed to target a specific sign of aging. Rosemary and lavender were used to strengthen memory and improve mood, while sage was thought to sharpen the mind. Chamomile and marigold were applied to the skin or brewed into teas to soothe irritation and maintain a youthful glow. Herbs were not only practical medicines, but also symbols of nature's power to restore and preserve life. Diet was also central to the European understanding of youth. The wealthy often consumed a diet rich in dairy, eggs, fruits, and fresh vegetables. Meats were prized for strength, while spices from faraway lands, like cinnamon and cloves, were believed to have rejuvenating properties. Honey, like in other cultures, was seen as a natural preservative for health and skin. Foods were often prepared with care to avoid imbalance, as medieval medicine emphasized the importance of humors, blood, phlegm, black bile, and yellow bile, and believed that proper digestion could maintain youth and vitality. Cosmetic practices were widespread. Face creams, balms, and ointments were made from mixtures of rosewater, almond oil, and ground herbs. Some of these preparations aimed to reduce wrinkles or firm the skin, while others were used to cover blemishes or pallor caused by illness or hard work. Even powders made from crushed pearls or minerals were applied to brighten the complexion. Beauty and youth were deeply intertwined, and appearance was often seen as a reflection of inner health and social status. Bathing and hygiene were considered vital, though access varied widely. In cities, public baths offered a place to cleanse, relax, and socialize. Wealthy households often had private bathing areas. Water might be infused with herbs such as lavender, rosemary, or mint, which were believed to refresh the body and spirit. Bathing was more than a ritual of cleanliness. It was a way to restore energy and maintain health, both crucial elements in preserving a youthful appearance. Medieval Europe also held a fascination with elixirs and potions. Alchemists and apothecaries experimented with mixtures containing herbs, animal products, and minerals, often labeled as waters of youth or potion of vitality. Some of these were harmless infusions of herbs, while others contained dangerous metals or animal extracts. Royal courts often commissioned such potions for kings, queens, and nobles, reflecting a deep desire to maintain strength and vigor. Even when the elixirs failed, the effort demonstrated how intertwined science, superstition, and hope were in the pursuit of youth. Sleep and lifestyle were considered essential to maintaining youth. Physicians recommended moderate activity, avoiding excess, and resting at regular times. Overwork or exposure to cold or damp environments was believed to accelerate aging. Gentle exercise such as horseback riding, walking in gardens, or simple stretching was encouraged. Balance and moderation in all aspects of life were seen as key to prolonging vitality. Cosmetic rituals often included fragrance and perfume, believed to lift the spirit and restore the body's energy. Lavender, rose, and frankincense were favorites, added to baths, rubbed on the skin, or carried as sachets. The scent was thought to invigorate the senses and counteract fatigue or worry, which were considered causes of premature aging. To smell good was not simply to please others, but to harmonize body and spirit. Medical texts from the Middle Ages, such as the works of Hildegard of Bingen, contained advice for maintaining youth. Hildegard emphasized the importance of digestion, balanced humors, and mental health. She recommended specific foods, herbs, and routines to preserve energy and vitality. Similarly, Physicians advised that strong teeth and clear eyes were signs of internal balance, and they suggested remedies to maintain these features, including herbal rinses, poultices, and simple exercises. Even clothing played a subtle role in preserving youth. Tight or restrictive garments were avoided because they were thought to impede circulation. Loose, flowing robes allowed the body to move freely and maintain warmth without strain. Bright colors and soft fabrics symbolized vitality and health, and wearing them was a small but deliberate way to support the appearance of youth. Religious and spiritual practices were often linked to longevity. Prayer, meditation, and acts of charity were believed to strengthen the soul, calm the mind, and indirectly preserve the body. Festivals, pilgrimages, and visits to holy wells were thought to impart energy or healing properties. The combination of moral living, spiritual practice, and practical medicine created a holistic approach to youthful living that integrated mind, body, and spirit. Even in a time when science was limited, medieval Europeans demonstrated a sophisticated understanding of aging. Their holistic view connected diet, hygiene, cosmetics, exercise, and spirituality. They recognized that maintaining youthfulness was not only about avoiding wrinkles or gray hair, but about cultivating overall health, energy, and balance. Modern wellness practices often echo these principles, showing that even centuries ago, people understood the importance of living in harmony with the body and mind to preserve vitality. The pursuit of youth in medieval Europe reminds us that across cultures and centuries, humans have sought to understand aging, to delay its signs, and to extend the enjoyment of life. Herbs, baths, diet, elixirs, and rituals all served as tools in this timeless quest. While some practices may seem strange today, they reflect a universal longing for vitality, beauty, and a life that feels fresh, energetic, and full. Section 14. Ancient Roman Secrets for Agelessness. In ancient Rome, the pursuit of youth and vitality was both practical and deeply tied to social status. To appear vigorous, strong, and healthy was a sign of wealth, discipline, and refinement. Roman physicians, philosophers, and even emperors offered advice on how to preserve energy, maintain a youthful appearance, and enjoy life for as long as possible. The Roman approach combined diet, hygiene, exercise, and indulgence in sensory pleasures, creating a holistic, yet sometimes luxurious path to longevity. Bathing was central to Roman daily life and seen as a powerful method of preserving youth. Public baths, or thermae, were widespread, offering a combination of heat, water, and exercise. Romans believed that warm baths opened the pores, allowed toxins to escape, and restored vitality. Cold plunges or frigidaria were used afterward to invigorate the body, improve circulation, and awaken the senses. In this way, the simple act of bathing became a daily ritual that nurtured both body and mind. Skincare was another essential aspect of Roman anti-aging practices. Wealthy Romans used olive oil, honey, and powdered minerals to cleanse, exfoliate, and nourish the skin. Oils were rubbed into the body, often after exercise or baths, to keep the skin supple and prevent dryness. Honey, known for its antibacterial properties, was used as a mask or mixed into ointments. Some treatments involved finely ground pearls or other minerals, which were believed to restore radiance and smooth fine lines. Beauty and health were intertwined, and the care of the skin was considered a direct path to maintaining youth. Roman diet emphasized both nutrition and moderation, reflecting the belief that food influenced both health and appearance. Fresh vegetables, fruits, grains, and olive oil were staples for those seeking longevity. Fish and lean meats provided protein without overburdening the digestive system. Roman texts often recommended avoiding excess wine or rich foods, which were thought to generate internal heat and hasten aging. Certain herbs, including rosemary, fennel, and coriander, were added to meals for flavor, but also for their restorative and rejuvenating properties. Exercise was a vital component of Roman strategies to stay young. Citizens and soldiers alike engaged in running, wrestling, and swimming to maintain strength and endurance. Gentle stretching, walking, and even ball games were practiced in the baths or public spaces. Exercise was not only about strength, but also about circulation, posture, and energy flow. A well-exercised body was considered youthful, capable, and resilient against the effects of aging. Romans also relied on perfumes and aromatic oils for both physical and spiritual rejuvenation. Scents like rose, myrtle, and cedar were used to uplift the spirit, calm nerves, and invigorate the senses. Fragrance was thought to influence the body as much as the mind. Oils were often mixed with massage, bathing, and brooming routines to enhance their effects, creating an integrated practice of sensory and physical rejuvenation. Medicinal treatments included various herbal and mineral remedies. Roman physicians recommended concoctions containing honey, myrrh, and even rare resins. These remedies were believed to support digestion, enhance vitality, and strengthen the immune system. Certain tonics were reserved for the elite, demonstrating the connection between social privilege and access to youth-enhancing practices. Even simple herbs like fennel or parsley were valued for their subtle effects on energy and vitality. Mental well-being was considered equally important in the Roman approach to youth. Philosophers and physicians emphasized tranquility, moderation, and reflection as key factors in preserving vitality. Stress, excessive worry, and anger were seen as accelerators of aging. Romans practiced meditation, enjoyed nature walks, and sought balanced lives that combined work, leisure, and contemplation. Inner peace was thought to manifest outwardly, keeping the body resilient and the skin vibrant. Romans also valued cosmetic procedures that would enhance appearance and mask signs of aging. Women used tinted powders to brighten the face, applied kohl to accentuate the eyes, and used rouges derived from natural minerals. Men sometimes used oils or mild scrubs to maintain healthy skin and a youthful look. These practices, though aesthetic, were closely linked to health and vitality in Roman thinking, showing the overlap between beauty, medicine, and lifestyle. Sleep and rest were carefully observed. Romans understood that fatigue and irregular sleep could accelerate aging. Those seeking to remain youthful ensured they rested adequately, often taking midday naps or retreating to quiet spaces in the home. Sleep was considered a restorative process that allowed both body and mind to recover, reinforcing the body's natural rhythms and preserving vitality. Interestingly, Romans also practiced light indulgences for longevity. Wine in moderation, honeyed desserts, and rare delicacies were considered life-enhancing when consumed wisely. Luxury was not seen as mere pleasure, but as nourishment for the soul and body. The careful balance of enjoyment, health, and moderation was a hallmark of Roman anti-aging philosophy. Perhaps most striking was the Roman understanding that youthfulness depended on integration of all aspects of life. Bathing, diet, exercise, sleep, meditation, cosmetics, and indulgences were not separate rituals, but interconnected practices. To preserve youth, One had to maintain balance in body, mind, and spirit. Each action, from bathing to walking to preparing meals, was seen as a contribution to vitality. This holistic approach shows that even in ancient times, longevity was viewed as a comprehensive art. The Roman pursuit of youth teaches us that aging is not merely a matter of appearance, but a reflection of how well we care for ourselves. By combining physical health, mental clarity, and spiritual balance, Romans believed one could remain vigorous, resilient, and vibrant. Their practices remind us that youth is both a state of being and a way of living, careful, attentive, and harmonized with nature and society. Section 15. Lessons from History on Staying Young. Across cultures and centuries, the pursuit of youth has taken many forms, yet certain themes repeat: care of the body, attention to diet, rituals for the mind, and a deep connection to nature. Ancient Egyptians, Chinese alchemists, medieval Europeans, and Romans all sought ways to maintain energy, vitality, and appearance. Each civilization had unique methods, but all recognized that staying young was not merely about surface beauty. It was about harmony, balance, and nourishment of both body and spirit. One lesson is that diet matters immensely. From ancient Rome's emphasis on fresh vegetables, grains, and moderate wine, to China's careful use of herbs like ginseng and goji berries, the foods chosen were thought to influence vitality, strength, and longevity. Even medieval Europeans, with their focus on humors and seasonal eating, understood that food could preserve energy or accelerate aging. Across time, humans realized that what we consume shapes not only our health, but our perception of youth, energy, and mental clarity. Hydration and bathing were also central. Egyptians soaked in milk baths and applied fragrant oils. Romans frequented thermae with hot and cold water, and medieval Europeans enjoyed herb-infused bathing rituals. Water was not merely cleansing, but symbolic, believed to restore energy, purify the body, and renew vitality. Repetition of these rituals, daily bathing, the use of oils and scented substances, was both practical and meditative, creating a rhythm that helped maintain youthfulness over time. Exercise and movement emerge as another timeless theme. Roman soldiers, citizens, and athletes practiced running, wrestling, and swimming. Medieval Europeans walked, rode horses, and stretched gently. Chinese practitioners cultivated qi through Tai Chi and Qigong. All believed that movement strengthened the body, preserved energy, and maintained flexibility. A youthful body in every culture was a moving body, and motion was considered essential for sustaining life's vigor. Herbs and natural remedies consistently appear throughout history. Egyptian oils, Chinese elixirs, and European potions all used plants, roots, resins, and minerals. While some concoctions were magical or symbolic, many had real physical benefits, such as antibacterial, anti-inflammatory, or hydrating properties. Honey, olive oil, rosemary, ginseng, and other natural substances were used not only for health, but for beauty. These remedies show a deep connection to nature and the understanding that what grows in the earth can strengthen life and sustain youth. Sleep and mental well-being were widely recognized as essential. Romans emphasized rest after bathing or work. Medieval Europeans sought balance through reflection, prayer, and tranquility. Chinese philosophers stressed meditation and mental harmony. Across all eras, it was clear that stress, overwork, and emotional imbalance accelerated aging, while calmness, regular sleep, and mindfulness promoted longevity. The idea that the mind influences the body is as relevant today as it was centuries ago. Cosmetics and external care also played an important role. Egyptians used kohl, oils, and honey. Romans applied powders and scented balms. Medieval Europeans relied on ointments and fragrant herbs. Appearance was never superficial. It reflected internal health, energy, and harmony. Youth was visible in the eyes, the skin, the hair, and the posture. Taking care of the outward self reinforced the inward balance and contributed to the overall sense of vitality. Ritual and spirituality were vital elements as well, whether through Egyptian offerings, Chinese Taoist meditation, medieval European prayer, or Roman philosophy. The spiritual dimension was inseparable from physical youth. Rituals promoted calm, reinforced daily habits, and offered a sense of purpose and alignment with the cosmos. This integration of spirit and body reveals a holistic understanding of what it means to remain youthful. Perhaps the most profound lesson from history is the concept of balance. Ancient peoples realized that excess in any form, food, work, indulgence, or emotion, could accelerate aging. Moderation, careful observation of nature, and attention to personal well-being were central to maintaining vitality. Youth was preserved not through a single secret or potion, but through consistent, deliberate habits that respected the body, mind, and spirit, even today. Many of these ancient practices resonate. Herbal teas, gentle exercise, skincare, meditation, and balanced diets continue to support health and vitality. While science now explains why certain foods, herbs, or routines are effective, the underlying principle remains the same. Attention to lifestyle, environment, and mental state sustains youth. Humanity's long history of striving for vitality reminds us that caring for oneself is timeless and universal. Ultimately, the quest to remain young is not only about avoiding wrinkles or gray hair, but about nurturing energy, curiosity, and resilience. Across time and cultures, people discovered that longevity depends on interconnected habits. Nourishing foods, clean water, exercise, restful sleep, mindful thought, and spiritual or emotional balance. Youth, then, is not a fixed age, but a reflection of how we care for our entire being, body and soul alike. As we reflect on these ancient lessons, we are reminded to approach life gently, with attention and care, knowing that every small choice, from what we eat to how we move, rest, and think, shapes our vitality. The past offers guidance, inspiration, and reassurance that staying youthful is as much a practice of harmony as it is a pursuit of beauty. And now, as our journey through history comes to a gentle close, let your mind relax and your body unwind. Imagine the soothing oils of Egypt, the fragrant herbs of China, the calm baths of Rome, and the quiet reflections of medieval Europe. Each ancient practice reminds us to slow down, care for ourselves, and appreciate the rhythms of life. Take a deep breath, feel your muscles soften, and let your thoughts drift. Like the ancients who sought to preserve their energy, allow yourself this moment of calm renewal. Soon, your body and mind will rest, and you will drift into a deep, peaceful sleep. Good night. And may your dreams be filled with gentle wisdom from the past, leaving you rested, refreshed, and quietly inspired.